Mighty Dash on runway 7 left in Los Angeles. We are on a short jaunt basically dedicated to scratching what seems to now be my endless itch about approaches, and that is namely that real approaches have curves. So we're going to be going from LAX out on the KLAX-7 departure, which is basically just runway heading and then direct Seal Beach, and then out to Thermal and into KPSP, and here's the curves part. There's Thermal. There's the runway we're going to be landing on. That's the curve. And this is just an absolutely beautiful curving RNP approach into runway 13 right here. Now, I flew this as a dry run a bit earlier today, and I came across a whole bunch of little difficulties, and I hope we've got them ironed out for this time. But one of them was that the beautiful Orbx airport, which is not yet ready for prepared version 3, but I installed anyway, had great big canyons in the runways and had elevation issues. So we fixed that by running Orbx's vector elevation correction tool. The other issue was a little bit more subtle, and that is that we were hand flying this approach here in VNAV descent mode for guidance, and with an LNAV or a GPS approach armed here, and it was going fine for lateral guidance, but anytime you got more than about an eighth of a tenth of a tick of a hint of a dot off the descent profile, the airplane would switch us over into pitch mode out of VNAV mode, and so my fingers were constantly doing a dance of trying to re-enable VNAV mode while trying to fly the plane. I'm going to try and solve that this time around in one basic way, and that is, I guess I'm going to try to fly the plane right, but also we'll just keep an eye open for all that. We are flying the most modern of approaches, a curving RNP GPS approach. We are going to be leaving using the modernist of technologies here, our HUD, which we've set up and programmed in full takeoff mode. See, it's enunciating right there. And it's got our remaining runway length and our ground guidance, and we set that up in a nutshell by making sure that we had the ILS for this runway set up on both sides in nav 1 and 2 that we were drawing as a nav source, nav 1 on this side, nav 2 on that side. We're essentially setting up the exact same way you would for a Cat 2 or a Cat 3 landing. And then we've got the correct runway length and elevation programmed in, and our mode is enunciating takeoff. And if you zip over here to the enunciator panel on the first officer's side, you'll see the same. Anyway, the KLAX-7 ordinarily calls for 4,000 feet until Seal Beach. We're going to disregard that and assume we've just been cleared up to altitude. The other neat little quirk of the departure is that we have a TFR, temporary flight restrictions, right in the middle of it if we were below, at 3,000 or below. And now you might think, is the president there? No. Is the vice president there? No. Are world leaders gathered there? No. Has there been a forest fire burning there? No. Police action? What is down there? The VIP down there is Mickey frickin' Mouse. Just like they have now over football games and baseball games, there is an almost permanent temporary flight restriction over Disneyland and Disney World, and I presume other big amusement parks during operating hours for the parks. So, in the middle of the busiest, or one of the busiest Class Bravo airspaces on the planet, where everything is already controlled to within an inch of its life, they slap this little TFR around here as well, as if they would have time to scramble F-16s if you were to somehow find yourself in there from here to here. That's about a minute and a half flying time. So I'm not sure what good it does except to make everybody feel a little bit happier, but there you have it. Pardon the sounds you hear in the background. That's the neighbor taking a shower. That's the water pipes here, and they're pretty loud. So I think what we better do is, we don't want to listen to that for too long. We might as well just get going. So do a quick flow. Everything good there. Seatbelt signs on. Bleeds to min. Caution lights are out. Pop down our HUD. Pop this up. By the way, what I've done is I've put Seal Beach as my standby, and what you'll see is I've also set it up so I've got an RMI needle pointing to it. So if we want, instead of switching over immediately to pink needles as our flight source as soon as we get done using this, let's switch the frequency here, and then we'll fly blue needles out there, at least for a little while. The other thing I need to remember to do is hit Alt Cell here. And get all that enunciating. Get us into nav mode. And there we have it. Matter of fact, get into heading mode and just fly the heading. So what we'll do is we'll take off, we'll climb straight ahead, and then at about 1,000 feet or so after we pull back our props, we will flip our radios over, we will flip this into nav mode, and we will fly towards Seal Beach. And we'll do it old school, at least for a little while. So with the neighbor's shower rattling away in the distance here, let me just double check our trims and our flaps, and we're good there. So let's just go. It's either the neighbor taking a shower or it's the neighbor's mice taking a shower. I'm not sure which. But really all bets are off. There's 80 knots. Looking for 134. There's a flaps 5 takeoff. We still have 9,000 feet of runway left. There we are, and up we go. We'll just fly to the 10-degree pitch bar for the moment. Bring up the gear. Bring up our 1 notch of flaps. Look for 1,120 to pull back the props. In a second I'll pop us into IAS mode. Matter of fact, let's do it, get to 180. And there we are. So now our meatball is going to give us guidance to hold 180 for our climb speed. And out we go. I will switch over our nav radio. And I'll pop up our primary display, and we will turn to about what's that, about 114. And we'll fly direct to Seal Beach. I can come up just a little bit here to bring our speed back to our target. Switch over to nav. It enunciates VOR, you see. Our nav source is on nav 1. until it captures it. It's not capturing it, but I'm going to capture it. Until I capture it, it'll stay in heading select. So essentially the needle is pointing to the station, or to the radial that we want, and we're going to wait for that to come in, and then we will capture it. And we'll turn left and we'll head out onto the Victor 64 airway. In a second, when I have my hands less full, I'll do what I should be doing, or my first officer should be doing, which is taking out the auto feather and turning off the pumps and bringing my bleeds to normal and all the after takeoff checklist items, which I know, you know, that I know, that you know, that we should be doing. But for the moment, I just want to fly this intercept and fly the plane, because it's not going to hurt for another minute or two to have our pumps on. It'll get a little bit sticky for the passengers if we leave our bleeds at min for too long, but we're 9 or so miles from Seal Beach, and we're on an intercept for it. We'll change our course. Change our course so we're direct to it. There. So just we'll drift a little bit wide of this course, but not too much. We're actually on a good intercept for that, and that is just about where we want to be. Wait for that to come in, and then we'll just wait for it to flip, and then we'll make our turn onto the V64. So there we go, we're above 10, so we could also turn on our lights. Just blew through that radial very slightly, but we'll get back on it momentito. And we're 5 miles away. And if you look at our map, you can see we're on the magenta line. So this is, we're mimicking with our radio, with our VOR navigation, we're mimicking what the GPS would do for us. Only we're doing it just a little bit less precisely, but not much. See, it says we've got no deviation, and now we're over the station. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to switch our nav source into FMS1, and I'm going to turn on the autopilot. I'm going to let it capture our course. We're in a speed mode going up. And now I can take care of business. So auto feather can come out. Guess our first officer was napping. And our bleeds can go to normal, and our lights can come off. And we can turn our ice protection on for the moment, because we went through a little bit of ice right here, as you can see. So I have this set up here so that when I go use my HUD, I can still see my torque. And now we are on the V64, because we're now pointing away from Seal Beach in the direction we should be pointing away from. If that makes any sense at all. And we're looking for flight level 180. This is going to be a real up and down flight. This is basically just going to be us climbing up and dropping down. So as soon as we get to our cruise, I'm going to program in a descent into the FMS, and then we're going to try and fly it. Damn it. This scenery real soon, as nice as it is, this is FDX Global and Vector, as nice as it looks right now, is going to look so much better in a few weeks because Orbx is about to release its Southern California region, which is going to have custom mesh, custom vector, custom land classes, custom everything. And if it's anything like their Northern California, it's going to be spectacular. And it'll probably be better because it'll have the advantage of a year and a half's work on it. So I'm going to turn off our ice protection because we don't need it. Check our cabin altitude, and that is fine. Everything else is nominal. Our cabin temperature is toasty warm. And we're coming up on 1,000 feet away, so I'm just going to bring our props back. Whenever you hear that chime, that is your cue to make sure that alt cell is engaged so that you don't blow through your altitude. So we have. And other than that, in 1 second, as soon as we level off, I'm just going to monitor the speed as we do. And then we will plan our descent and plan our approach. Let's take care of some of that right now. I'll also set standard altimeter. And that is done. Our minimum is going to be 300 feet. So put that in. And we've captured altitude. Just do a little retrimming here. Speed's going to climb up. Briefly look at our MSA is within 25-mile radius. The runway is 12,000 some feet, so you can get some idea of the kind of bowl that it's in and the kind of terrain it's set up against. Big mountains here, big mountains here, big mountains here. And our altitudes along the way are 8,000 from Cuxit, 7,500 Hopley, 6,000 Wasatch, etc., 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 etc. Our missed approach is 4,000 back at thermal. So basically we would just climb on runway heading as quick as we can up to 4,000, fly straight to thermal, and then hold on the 310 inbound, which would mean we would do a parallel entry back into it. So let's plan our descent. Find our constraint, which is 8. Let's just let it know that we're going to be at 190 here. Let's make it here. See if that changes its calculus. Alright, so VNAV, was it Cuxit? Yes, Cuxit. In it goes, 8,000. We have to be very careful. We don't want to set 8,000 prior to Cuxit. You can set an offset, but if you do, when there's mountains along the way, you do it at your own peril, so we're not gonna. That gives us a nice gentle glide path. And we are 7 minutes away. You can see how fast this flight is. Another thing I'm going to do because of all the step downs is, well, you know what? I'll trust it to do the step downs. I'm going to set my initial constraint, which is what you're supposed to do, and then it's supposed to handle it all the way down. So set 8,000. We'll also get our weather in Palm Springs while we're at it. Conditions in Palm Springs, 3008. A decent wind in almost opposite the direction we're going to be flying, but not a lot, so it's just a slight quartering tailwind, so it should add a little spice to our lives. So we'll stick 30.08 right here as our scratch pad. There that is. Let's just expand out here. And there is our top of descent, and there is our approach. As I said, I ran into some problems with VNAV disconnecting here, and I think some of it has to do with this sharp turn and the fact that it finds itself drastically above and below path every once in a while, and I wish it would just keep the path and not put us in pitch hold mode, but it doesn't do that, so just have to suck it up. Keep this scale down here and retrim. Top of descent is coming up in 4 minutes. You can arm our approach. Because it's a RNAV approach, it's not, and it's based on GPS data, it's not asking us to tune in anything, so it doesn't offer tune approach. Let's just see what else we can see here. Is our runway length, and runway elevation is 451, so we can have some accurate guidance on our HUD. Elevation is 451. And in a second, once we get established on our descent, I'll also check to see whether that's a standard 3-degree glide. I'm not sure if it is. Yes, it is. Okay. If it weren't, you'd have to set that in the HUD as well, otherwise your targets would be a bit off. And as you can see here, we are getting into the mountains, and they're quite something to look at, but they're not much to fly into. Okay, 3 minutes from TOD. This should enunciate very shortly. We'll also, there we go, pop us into VNAV mode. And it does. The last time I flew this, it wouldn't even take this. So I spent a lot of time digging around trying to get it right, and then I ended up flying the profile myself. 2 mixed results, shall we say. That ended up on the cutting room floor. Alright, since we're about to go down, I'm just going to get configured a little bit early, as I usually do. Seatbelt sign is on already. Just going to turn our lights on because I want to hand fly this thing, so not having a first officer means that can't monkey around the cockpit quite so much as I would. It also changes my scan a little bit, and I don't want to task saturate myself. This is not, strictly speaking, the way you'd fly it, the way you'd ordinarily fly it, is you would probably set your pumps and auxes on coming down through 10,000. You would you'd also set your landing props, your condition levers, close to final approach, but since we're going to be curving around, I don't want to do that. What I do want to do is I want to get our V-speeds. So we'll be landing flaps 15, got plenty of runway, and we'll make our V-app with our tailwind correction, little tailwind component. We'll make it about 133. Make it 134. So we're not fighting with it the whole way down. And here comes our top of descent. And for the moment at least, I'm going to fly this descent portion, the initial descent portion, until we get to thermal on the autopilot, just because I want to see how it establishes itself. The other thing I do want to do is check our aileron trim. That's neutral. Rudder trim's a little bit to the right, and that's fine. So here we go. And what did we say? 30.08. So in a second we'll set 30.08. Spin it around so fast that it throws us off our VNAV path so much that it kicks us out of it, so I'm just creeping up on it. You wouldn't do that in the real plane because it wouldn't work that way in the real plane, probably. Well, everything in this thing is so damn close. Alright, our landing speeds are set. Pop up the HUD and see what we can see. Alright, VNAV path is enunciated. We are nice and locked on there, and we're on just less than a 3-degree downgrade, which is where we should be. We are, as the HSI shows here, locked on our FMS course, and we're descending just about the way we should. And it's offering to activate the approach, but we don't want to do that because it'll skip a bunch of waypoints and it will make very ugly writing on the sky. Just gonna come plowing in here almost as fast as I can. We're gonna do this like we know how to do it, or at least we're gonna pretend. Now remember, some of this terrain is about 11,000 feet. So we go into this massive turn here, and we will lose the VNAV path, possibly. And I'm just slowing this down a little bit. No, what the hell, I'm not going to slow us down a little bit. Pretend we need to get there. Not unsafely, but briskly. So I'll stay at around 250. Now we're deviated over here even though we are on course because this is a big wind that's blowing us off this way, so that's what Those dotted lines are indicating. It means a whole big hunk of crosswind at altitude. Keeping an eye on this to make sure that it doesn't pop us into pitch hold. It's very easy for that to happen. No bells go off, no whistles. You just are, and you end up in the wrong mode, and then you wonder why the plane isn't doing what you want it to do. All right. Keep that up here. Square up our heading bug. And we're coming up on Cuxit in 13 miles. And miracle of miracles, we're still on profile. Again, this has nothing to do with the skills of the programmers at Majestic. This has everything to do with the fact that, as I understand it, the dash and its FMS and its autopilot can be finicky. So we're right up on barber pole here. We're just barreling on in. We're going to have to come down to 250 at 10 unless we got special dispensation. But, you know, we'll play by the rules here. Look at that, just right up on the hairy edge. Alright, doing a little mental calculation. We're 11 away from Cuxit. We're 11,000 for 8, so we have to come down 3. And we are 7 miles away. We can come down a little less than 3. But if I haul off the power a bit, slow us down a bit, we can descend a little bit more steeply. The computer will recompute. It will bring us down a little faster, and we can do that without overspeeding. I'm basically reducing our speed over the ground, so you see how that's creeping up? So it can point us a little more nose down and descend us a little quicker. Now, before we get too far along here, I'm going to put us into reduce noise profile landing mode. Which lets us land with slow props, but will let us speed them up when we need to. And we are 1,000 away, and we are 2 miles from Cuxit, so we are doing just fine. Slowing us down did the trick. I'm going to spin our altitude down to field elevation just because I don't want the annunciator shouting at us again and again and again as we go down. Ordinarily you would spin it down with every step down, but okay, so it levels us at Cuxit. Feed a little power back in. And we are going to start our glorious curve at Hopely. What I'll do is I'll stick this little baby right here and this little baby right there, and we'll just have a little gauge party. Okay, and at this point I'll come down to 200. So we can bring in our first notch of flaps. And we are still on path. And we're going to pretend we can't see anything. And I'm going to gently put my feet on the rudder pedals. And
2,500.
Put out our first notch of flaps. Wait for it to settle. approach. And we got this thing. So I'm just keeping the meatballs centered. Watching my speed. We're getting blown wide. You see how the meatballs are going to the right? That is a wind that is blowing us outward. Keeping my eye, make sure that VNAV path is still illuminated. It is. Bring down the gear. Still keeping the speed up a little bit here. I see the wind dying down. It's more off our nose, and how the meatball is now coming into the center. I'm sorry, the flight path vector, the FPV. I know. Okay, we can put in another notch of flaps. And around the turn we go. Forgive me, my hygiene. I am not spinning our heading bug around at the moment because my hands are full. Okay, we are nicely on profile. Put in our last notch of flaps. Just going to let the nose dip a little here because it'll pop back up like so. And now we're getting blown to the inside. You can see the flight path vector start to drift to the left. So I will just retrim a little bit here. A little bit out of trim, a little bit out of shape. We're nicely on our arc. Still a little fast, but I'm going to have plenty of time to slow down. Our minimums are 300 feet. We are, as they say in Britain, bang on. Got a little heavy left foot there on the rudders. Don't know why. And now winds are blowing us from right to left, and you can see the FPV's deviated over that way. And we'll continue to keep ourselves on our arc, keeping those meatballs centered. And you can see we're just in a continuous circling, descending approach here. And again, I'm heavy with my left foot today. Don't know why. Let's fix that. And we continue to be nicely on that magenta arc. My speed bleed down ever so slightly. Slightly above profile, so we can bring off a little more speed. We're resting right about 3 degrees down, so that's fine. But I do need to lose some speed, so down comes the power. Up comes the trim. comes the rudder. And we'll just nicely drift down, and here comes our tailwind. Trimming a little more. That's about right. I'm going to slowly start bringing the power back in, but not too much. And here we come around the arc. Very slightly low. Feed in some more power. And the wind is pushing us now inwards. And we got a little disconnect there. Okay, there we go. And so we'll reconnect. Captured. Don't want the speed to creep down too far. Feed in a little more power. There we are. And in a second we'll start going downhill again. Like so. Got almost a pure tailwind right now. Coming around the corner. Carrying a bit more power than I ordinarily would. And I'm just slowly walking us through the sky here. A little bit nose up, about 2.5 degrees nose up. And now we're getting pushed around a little bit. As we round the corner. There is the field. So let's land the plane. As expected, we've got about a 9-knot tailwind. I don't see any holes in the runway. It's a very displaced threshold. And there's a reason why I disconnected now. If you notice that our VNAV, well, that shows us on path. But it jumps all over the place on this approach, and I'm not sure why. So I'm not sure if I trust it all the way down to minimums. Let's just for fun keep an eye on that vertical deviation scale there. I don't think it's right because it's telling us we need to be higher and the PAPIs are telling us otherwise. So I don't think it's to be trusted. So we won't trust it. Alright, our flaps are down, our gear is down, our lights are on, got a little bit of a tailwind.
500.
So I'm going to carry a little bit more speed than usual over the threshold.
Plus 100.
A bit of a crosswind too.
Minimums.
Look at that displaced
Minimums.
threshold. That can be very deceiving. Okay, we're right on speed.
Sink rate.
Oh, stop it.
50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
And there we are. Welcome to Palm Springs.